To this in replay, you can fast forward to the beginning of the episode so you don't have to listen to this. Also, if you're also new to Fireside and you're live, or the next time you will be live, you can do things like hit react button and choose to clap or laugh or all different types of emojis you can use. Also, if you want to leave a comment, you hit the same react button and type your comment, choose an emoji, then type your comment and hit send and it'll send. Also, if you want to connect to me in any way, shape, or form, click on the fortune cookie there and it will take you to my Sociotap and you can communicate with me that way. So the show will be starting in just about a minute, so please stand by. Let's get it where you can hear me. So I hope everyone can hear me, which would be good. So we're getting ready to get this show started. So here we go.
Purchase your track today.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Poetic People Fighting Racism, Double PFR. I'm your host, Anthony Cordova, Tony C., the man about love. I'm also the co-host of I'm Right, I'm Right, where I have the privilege to be in a show with my beautiful, with my intelligent, with my incredibly gifted wife, Jill Cox Cordova, right here on Fireside. Here at Double PFR, we discuss racism and the caste system in the United States of America through poetry, through art, through music, using the voices of our souls, using the strength of our ancestors to heal the fractured country we live in and die in. Here at Double PFR, all souls are welcome. All people are welcome. Welcome to discuss the racism we live in. Come on in. We'll put our arms around you, providing a safe place for you, a home to protect you, a place where you're surrounded by compassion, where you're surrounded by empathy, forgiveness, and love. Surrounded by love, surrounded by so much love. I'd love for you to come in with me, to stand by me, to see what we can do to change this country, to change the people that live in this country. I welcome you to Double PFR with love, with so much love. Double PFR. Woo-hoo! Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the show again. I am so glad that you're here. Whether you're listening live or you're listening to a replay, I'm really glad you're here. And the reason I am really glad you're here is because I know these are difficult topics that we talk about here. And people tend to really want to avoid these conversations. So for you to be here and to even be listening to it in replay is actually a part of you being a everyday activist. That is something I feel that we should all do in this country, in any form that you can. Today, I have a good example of someone being an everyday activist. Uh, I had someone write in with a poem, and her name is Costanza. And she wrote a poem, and I'll call it Educate. But she didn't have to do this. She didn't have to put herself out this way, but it is a little part of what someone could do to be an everyday activist. So the first thing I'm going to do tonight is her poem. So let's get started with it. We'll cue up the music and then we will get with it. Are you woke or awake? You say you're awake, so open your eyes and minds to educate, educate, educate. Don't hide this country's truth. You must know this country's truth. Educate, educate, educate. When you know the truth, you will no longer be awake. You will finally be woke. Educate, educate, educate. We've seen injustice boldly present itself. Have you tried to help? You ask, what can I do? What can I do? Educate, educate, educate on injustice and what it's like to be a person of color, to be black in America. Educate, educate, educate on who is most plagued with injustice and why. Educate, 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 and stay woke. Educate, educate, educate. Ooh, I love that. I love that. I love that. And thank you so much, Costanza. It's a big deal to put yourself out there like that. And I know it can be scary and all of that, but you did it. You did it. You put yourself out there. You are one of the people that helps make a change. So that's really good. That's really good. I love that. That's fantastic. So I'm going to move on. And first, I'll ask, is there any comments? Does anyone want to come to the stage and say anything? If so, that would be great. If not, I will move along.
Sweetheart, I just wanted to say I'm so glad that you started the show with that poem because the poem, like you said, is an example of everyday activism, just expressing oneself and about what they're observing and what their experiences are in this society. Says a lot. And it also had a call to action. So I think it's fantastic to start the show that way and with that specific poem. So kudos to the writer as well.
To the writer, yes, 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 yes. That was just fantastic. I really did enjoy that poem. All right. Well, this is when we usually get to the poem I've written, and this week it's Living and Dying. It's pretty self-explanatory. Like usual, I have to talk about the Blue and White Eyes and Decent White Lives. So, the Blue and White Eyes are some of the people with white skin that believe their European blood makes them pure, better and supreme than anyone with color in their skin. So, what it is really identifying the blue is their pure blue blood they believe they have running through their veins. And the white portion of it refers to seeing through white eyes or Caucasian eyes, and how they look at people they believe are less than. So, and that was last week's poem, Less Than. So, you know about that. So, and then we know the decent white lives are decent, American people that happen to be white and they don't have hatred for someone else uh, because of the color of their skin or because of where they come from or because they're LGBTQ. They just don't think that way. So I'm going to get with it and get this poem started. It's called Living and Dying, and it is also the title of my manuscript. So I'm going to get right on it. "246 years. Living and dying. 246 years of living and dying, praying to be free in heavenly graves, living and dying. 246 years of sadistic minds and nighttime crimes filled with fears of days and night, with fears of death by candlelight, for learning to read and learning to write, praying to be free of endless days and the maze of being a God-loving slave with no way out, of living and dying, a tortured life, praying to be free in heavenly graves, living and dying, while being an American slave. 246 years. We should sue under the rules of international law for crimes against humanity. 246 years of Hitler-like insanity, living and dying. Some of the blue and white eyes wish they could exterminate us all. We are black, we are colored, we are Negro, we are African and American, us all. We are the ones that don't look like them or sound like them, us all of us are not them. If the blue and white eyes could have their way and somehow convince the world to turn their heads and look away the way the world did for 246 years of us living and dying, they would probably kill us all or make blacks in America slaves again so they could make America great again. 246 years. Living and dying. 246 years. All right. Well, that was it. Living and dying. That's something else. So I just had an issue with my phone here, and thank you for the applause. Well, it doesn't look like I have anybody that wants to speak on this, so I will speak on this. And let me get my things together here, and we will speak on this. So, the 246 years of this poem refers to the amount of years black people were enslaved in America, on this continent. And I found that Black people have been enslaved longer than any other race in the world. In the world. And I truly believe that we are still free-ish. Free-ish. Because we don't have the freedom that Caucasians have in this country. They can go anywhere, do anything, and not worry about whether someone's going to hate them because of the color of their skin. So, 246 years. Now, I talk about living and dying, and what I'm getting to when I say that is that in this country, African Americans, Black people, Native Americans, Latino, Asian, LGBTQ, the blue and white eyes don't care. We're born, we live, and we die. And they don't care. They don't care that we were here at all. Our lives are meaningless to them. No matter what our accomplishments, no matter how well we take care of our families, no matter what great citizens we are, we're here just living and dying through their eyes. So then I move on to talk about what was it like to be enslaved in this country? I mean, you really need to think about it. What was it like? So in the third line of this poem, I say, praying to be free in heavenly graves, which means if you were an enslaved person during that 246 years, you contemplated whether it is just better for me to be dead than alive. Will I catch my freedom? Will I find my freedom in heaven, which would be a heavenly grave? So desperation, you're a person and you're enslaved, and you know that you're going to be enslaved for your entire life until you die. I'm sure most people don't think about it. Most people don't want to hear about it. But these are the way slaves had to think. And our enslavers were sadistic. They were really sadistic people. They would burn us, cut off our limbs, cut off our fingers, poke out our eyes for like learning to read. If you didn't do everything they said, you were done. Your life would be even worse than it already had been. So it's an awful thing. And I really need people to really think about it. Really think about over a 246 years time period. This was an everyday occurrence. And Black people, enslaved people, couldn't do anything about it. And some people say, oh, the enslaved people, the black people, were weak and didn't have a backbone. But the stories we don't hear is about how many slaves actually ran away. It's more than we realize. Many slaves ran away. And this just popped in my head, and it's got to do when I was a child in elementary school, and they covered history. History. And of course, they had to touch on slaves and slavery and the Civil War. And this is what I got from my teachers, from my Caucasian teachers. I would ask a question. I was like, that's awful. Why did they enslave the people, the black people? Why did they do that? And my Caucasian teachers, and this is more than once, this is several times they have said this. They said, but the slaves loved being slaves. They loved it. They'd like to sing and dance and take care of their masters. In a public school, this is what I was taught. So I went home and I asked my mother, Mom, they told me that slaves were happy. Slaves would sing and dance and they loved their slaves. We talked about George Washington and they would say, oh, George Washington had slaves, but his slaves loved him. His slaves loved him. No slave loved their master, their enslaver. Not one single slave. They show us all that crap in books, in movies. It was never true. It was never true. They did everything in their power to keep us down. They wouldn't let us read. They wouldn't let us read. We couldn't learn to read or write or do math. But yet we, the enslaved people, are the ones that taught them to be better farmers. Right? But, they kept us down. They don't want us to read. They don't want us to write. And if you did, you might get your eye poked out. They might decide to kill you. For a group of people to believe that one human being should own another human being is insane. It's really insane. And that's why I refer to them as sadistic minds. Because it's an awful thing. How do you think they would feel about slavery if all of a sudden someone came here and enslaved every Caucasian person on earth? Do you think they would say slavery was their God-given right? But it goes beyond that. Not only did they say it was their God-given right, the United States government also went along with everything. You know, they wrote the Constitution, every man should be free, and I'm paraphrasing on this, every man should be free except black people. Except black people. They would do our government, the one we still have, would do everything possible to keep us enslaved. Everything possible. Check this out. At one time, well, check this out. We know that they stole all the land from Native Americans, kept pushing them out. But in the beginning, they would push them out a little bit, and they convinced Native Americans to enslave black people too. So what they would do is use black people for trade. They would take us and trade us to Native Americans for land. The government would say, "Hey, yeah, we'll give you X amount of slaves for that 1,000 acres." And they said, okay. So a lot of us don't know this, but the Native Americans had us too, because the United States government said you're supposed to have them. You can have them. It's legal. It's legal. Laws that they made up. So, but here's the difference. The Native Americans had us as slaves also for a short time. But then some of the slaves they held married Native Americans. So even in slavery with the Native Americans, they treated us better than the United States government, than the people of this country, the blue and white eyes of this country. They treated us better. But the United States government kept cheating the Native Americans, and they kept killing Native Americans. So the Native Americans asked, "Hey, what's going on? You're treating us just like the black people you have as slaves." And they're like, "Well, you either join us, do the same thing as us, or you're against us." They made a decision to be against them because they saw what the blue and white eyes would do. Some of the slaves became part of their tribes and had children and a family and a good life with the Native Americans. After that point, Native Americans never, ever tried to enslave a black person, because they realized that the people, the new people of this country, the blue and white eyes of this country, felt the same about the people they enslaved as they did about the Native Americans. So they just kept on doing what they do. And today, the Native Americans are still paying for it. Today, we are still paying for it. This is why I say we may not truly be free. I have a day job. And in my day job, one of the guys comes to me, and they had just recently put him in the office, and he says to me, and this happened a little while ago, not years ago, a little while ago. He says, I was sitting here at my desk, and all the bosses and everybody else, they're saying N word this, N word that, N word, N word, N word. And I'm like, really? He says, yeah, really. And I'm like, that doesn't surprise me. He said, but I told them about themselves, and they stopped. But did they really stop? See, we know how they think. So no, they didn't really stop. They stopped in front of him because they was probably scared of him, but they didn't stop. But these are the things we have to live with every day. So that's why I say we're free-ish. We always have to think about and hear microaggressions. You're in your office and you change your hair to natural, and they're like, why'd you do that? You don't look as good that way. Really? Who the hell are they to say? Who are they to say? It's just insane. And I know I say insane a lot, but it is insane. I'm going to jump down to another part of this poem where it says, we should sue under international laws for crimes against humanity. 246 years of Hitler-like insanity. And the reason I say that is because everyone knows what Hitler did to the Jews. We all know, we all know how horrible it is. But the truth is that Hitler sent people to this country to observe how black people were treated here during Jim Crow. And they couldn't believe that this country was able to pull that off. So even after 1865, black people were still being treated like enslaved people. And they couldn't understand how they did that. So they went back and reported to Hitler, and Hitler said, great, well, we're going to do that. And, there's a war, and United States came in and saved the day, but there were black soldiers there too. And they told everyone there, they told the French anywhere they went, even though black soldiers were there, they would tell them, don't treat them with respect. Treat them as less than. They're not as good as you because of their color of the skin. So this country would take their racism to another country and try to teach people of another country how to be racist. And this is where we live. And don't get me wrong, I love this country, but I'm its battered child. This country has been pulling me up and beating me down from my birth to my death. See how it protects me? While it chains me to its past. So if you have some color in this skin, in your skin, they still treat us the same. We need to watch for it. Sometimes we don't want to watch for it. How many times have you had to say, I ain't got time for that? I ain't got time for it today. I don't have time to be dealing with them today. On one of these shows on Fireside, I was in the audience and I got to the stage to speak, and I was talking about some of the things that I've been through. and it was um a Caucasian host, and they had asked me because I was talking about the things we have to go through, being careful of being pulled over and what we say and what we do. Eyes always watching us, being followed in stores, being accused of stealing things when you've stole nothing. That we have to keep our receipts. Make sure you have your receipt when you leave the store because someone may accuse you of stealing something. But she asked, well, how many times have you been pulled over in your life? And no one ever asked me that question before. So I had to think about it. I was like, well, I never really thought about it before. But at a guess, maybe 50 or 60 times. And the host was like, you got to be kidding me. I said, no, I'm not kidding you. Like I said, I never thought about it, but probably 50 or 60 times in my lifetime, I have been pulled over. And I said, sometimes it was for speeding. Sometimes it wasn't. Most of the time it wasn't. And the host could not believe it. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, as old as I am, it's like just a year ago, somebody accused me of stealing something in a truck stop. I'm like, what the heck? I still got to go through this crap? Whew, gee. All right. I'm going to slow down with all of this. I am going to slow down with all this because I promised Jill that I would watch the clock. And I am watching the clock. So I'm trying to keep the show down a little bit. So, again, I would ask if anyone wants to come on the stage, make a comment, anything, you can do that. But if you don't want to do that, it's okay. So, if we don't have much more tonight, I'm going to start closing out this show. So the first thing I want to do before I close out the show is tell everyone here we need to remember, because this is going to be our call to action for this show, to educate. To educate, just like our poet for the night said. Educate, educate, educate. Because if we don't, we're just walking around blind. If we don't educate, we don't even know what we're fighting against. If we don't educate ourselves. And educating yourselves doesn't necessarily mean you have to enroll in a college course. We have knowledge at our fingertips at all times. Educate yourself. Figure out what's happening. Figure out where you stand. So just educate. So that's the call to action this time. Educate. And see what you can do. Because that is what will make you an everyday activist. Just educate yourself. That's what you need to do. So I am going to start closing out this show, and I want to make a few thanks and everything else for this evening. So the first person I want to thank is Costanza with that lovely poem called Educate. It was fantastic. And for other people that are listening to this live or listening to the show in the replay, do like her. just do something, and it can make a difference. I also want to thank our audience, all the Firesiders that listen into the replay. I also want to especially thank the general admission people, because they're coming to Fireside like you would not believe. And we love all your support. So I also want to thank Jill, my producer. She keeps me straight. And you all know that. And hi, Chris and Connie and Shaka. Oh, good to see you, Shaka. So everybody knows Jill keeps me straight. I also want to put out a thanks for the music you're hearing now. It is called Cora by 29 Beats. And then the music we played for Educate is Fearless, and that's by Dreamland Beats. And the music I played along with my poem is called Destiny, and it's from G-Type Beats. So again, I love you all. I love you all that are here. I love you all that are in replay. I love all of you, even if you don't love me. I truly do love you. So stay safe, and love to everybody.